Bad idea detected. Welcome to Dumbora.
Some people built fortunes by ignoring common sense, basic math, and every warning label. 1. In 2009, a man in Nevada looked at the collapsing housing market, the same financial dumpster fire that had Wall Street sweating through expensive suits, and decided this was the perfect time to buy a foreclosed house because he liked the mailbox. Not the kitchen, not the neighborhood, the mailbox. It was shaped like a small barn, and apparently that was enough due diligence for a purchase roughly equivalent to adopting a tiger because it had nice eyelashes. His friends begged him to research property values. He did not. He saw a cute mailbox, panic-bought the entire house, and accidentally grabbed property in what later became one of the fastest recovering zip codes in the state. 5 years later, developers arrived, prices exploded, and his emotionally irrational mailbox investment tripled in value. Financial experts call this fortunate timing. I call it the first recorded case of suburban curb appeal, outperforming market analysis. Somewhere, Warren Buffett sighed deeply, while a barn-shaped mailbox quietly became a retirement plan. 2. One woman in Ohio tried to avoid paying bank fees with the kind of determination usually reserved for prison escapes. Furious that her savings account charged monthly maintenance fees, she withdrew nearly everything and started hiding cash inside old VHS tapes labeled Tax Workouts 1987 and Jazzercise for Seniors. Her logic was simple. No thief, family member, or functioning adult would ever voluntarily watch those tapes. For years, her house became a low-budget Fort Knox of obsolete aerobics and terrible synth music. Then streaming happened. Nostalgia exploded. Vintage collectors began paying absurd money for old VHS lots, especially weirdly preserved workout tapes. Her grandson sold several boxes online without realizing they contained hidden cash, but buyers discovered the money, contacted her, and the bizarre story went viral. Suddenly, collectors wanted her legendary secret savings tapes, and memorabilia offers flooded in. She made more from media appearances and branded novelty tape sales than any savings account could have earned. She avoided bank fees so aggressively, she accidentally invented retirement by hoarding Jane Fonda. 3. Back in the early days of online shopping, one painfully average office worker kept forgetting coworkers' birthdays, anniversaries, and retirement parties. Instead of becoming more organized like a normal person, he bought hundreds of generic greeting cards from a clearance bin because they were cheaper than one decent steak dinner. His grand strategy was laziness in bulk. He stuffed the cards in a closet and forgot about them for nearly a decade, which already sounds like the beginning of a mild hoarding documentary. Then one day, vintage greeting cards from the 80s and 90s became collectible nostalgia items. Apparently, people will pay surprising amounts for cardboard featuring faded balloons and aggressively wholesome teddy bears. He listed his forgotten stash online expecting grocery money, and instead found collectors treating his basement like the Smithsonian of emotional procrastination. Those happy retirement Bob cards became rare retro gold. He turned chronic forgetfulness into a profitable side hustle, proving sometimes being bad at human relationships is just pre-investing in nostalgia. 4. A truck driver in Texas hated carrying loose change so much that he started tossing pennies into a giant water cooler jug every night, instead of rolling them properly. No spreadsheets, no savings goals, no heartfelt speeches about discipline. Just pure annoyance and the ancient American tradition of, "I'll deal with it later." For years, this copper avalanche grew in his garage like a monument to fiscal laziness. His wife begged him to cash it in, but he insisted coins were future him's problem, which is usually how people describe both taxes and mysterious back pain. Then copper prices jumped, and certain older pennies became unexpectedly valuable due to metal content and rarity. What he thought was a giant jar of inconvenience turned out to include rare wheat pennies and collectible coins worth far more than face value. His petty hatred of coin rolls became a surprisingly profitable accidental treasure hunt. He didn't build wealth through strategy. He built it by aggressively refusing to visit Coinstar. 5. In California, a struggling college student bought an ugly floral couch at a thrift store because it was cheaper than textbooks and only slightly less depressing. The couch looked like it had survived 3 divorces, 2 basement floods, and at least 1 emotional support ferret. But hidden inside one of the cushions was a small envelope stuffed with old stock certificates from a company she'd never heard of. Most people would have tossed them immediately, assuming they were decorative Depression-era sadness. Instead, because college students will investigate anything that might become pizza money, she looked them up. After mergers, acquisitions, and decades of corporate evolution, those forgotten papers had transformed into shares worth a life-changing amount. That hideous sofa became less furniture and more financial fairy godmother. She bought it because she was broke, kept it because she was practical, and got rich because somebody else apparently used upholstery as a filing cabinet. Sometimes wealth isn't built. Sometimes it's wedged between mildew and bad fabric choices. 6. In the late 90s, one divorced dad in Florida got tired of hearing financial gurus preach about diversifying assets while wearing suspenders and sounding like PBS Pledge Drive hosts. So instead of mutual funds, he spent his modest tax refund buying discontinued Beanie Babies from clearance bins at Hallmark, gas stations, and one deeply suspicious mall kiosk next to an orange Julius. His children assumed this was emotional collapse. Honestly, fair. He filled his garage with plush lobsters, patriotic bears, and enough pellet-stuffed regret to qualify as a small toy museum. Then collector hysteria hit suburban America like Cabbage Patch madness on espresso. Certain retired Beanie Babies sold for absurd prices, and suddenly his sad post-divorce impulse purchases funded a condo down payment. He didn't believe in markets. He believed in panic buying stuffed animals with heart-shaped tags. While his broker neighbor mocked him over decaf coffee, this man accidentally rode plush speculation all the way to solvency. Wall Street had charts. He had Princess Diana bears and unresolved feelings. 7. A woman in Arizona absolutely refused to throw away her old McDonald's Monopoly game pieces because she believed one of them might eventually become valuable, despite her family insisting she was preserving greasy cardboard like cursed lottery tickets. For years, she kept them in a cookie tin originally meant for sewing supplies, because apparently every American household over 40 legally owns one. Most pieces were worthless: French fries, free soda, emotional damage. But among thousands of discarded tabs was a rare promotional error piece collectors desperately wanted. By the time online auction sites exploded, nostalgia and weird niche collectors had turned fast food trash into a bizarre side economy. She sold it for enough to wipe out credit card debt built mostly at Target and Kohl's. Decades of refusing to clean junk drawers finally paid off. Her husband called her a hoarder. Turns out she was just an archivist for capitalism's strangest treasure hunt. Ronald McDonald practically became her financial advisor. 8. One man in Michigan hated modern furniture so much he spent weekends buying ugly solid wood junk from garage sales because, in his words, they don't make it like they used to. Which is exactly what every uncle says before explaining carburetors or why rock music died after 1987. He skipped trendy IKEA showrooms and instead hauled home massive dressers that smelled faintly of mothballs and unresolved Eisenhower-era trauma. His wife saw clutter. He saw craftsmanship. Then the farmhouse decor craze arrived, like HGTV had weaponized nostalgia. Suddenly, millennials with throw pillows and disposable income were paying shocking prices for authentic vintage Americana, also known as furniture your grandparents couldn't get rid of. He refinished old pieces, sold them online, and turned his stubborn resistance to Swedish minimalism into a six-figure side business. He wasn't collecting outdated furniture. He was pre-stocking a Joanna Gaines fever dream. Turns out refusing to modernize can be profitable, especially when younger generations mistake your basement for curated rustic chic. 9. In 2003, a bored accountant in New Jersey bought a vending machine because he was too socially awkward to enjoy networking events and too cheap to start a real business. He placed it in his cousin's struggling laundromat between a broken claw machine and a flickering Pepsi sign that looked one electrical fire away from retirement. His grand entrepreneurial vision: selling off-brand snacks to people trapped washing tube socks. Hardly Shark Tank material. But while everyone chased .com fantasies and granite countertops, this machine quietly printed quarters like a suburban casino for Cheetos. He reinvested in more machines, barbershops, bowling alleys, DMV waiting rooms, those soul-crushing places where human hope goes to expire. Within years, he owned dozens. While investors obsessed over stock splits, he mastered America's true economic engine: impatience plus Doritos. He didn't innovate. He just monetized boredom one stale honey bun at a time. Somewhere between laundromat lint and fun yuns, this man discovered passive income's most sodium-rich form. 10. A retired school principal in Ohio became irrationally obsessed with buying old Pyrex dishes at church rummage sales because they reminded her of casseroles, Tupperware parties, and an era when Jell-O salads somehow counted as cuisine. Her children begged her to stop filling cabinets with floral glassware clearly designed by someone hallucinating in 1974. But she persisted, scooping up faded bowls for pocket change because they were built better. Then social media happened, and suddenly Gen X nostalgia collided with hipster kitchen culture like Martha Stewart in a denim jacket. Rare vintage Pyrex patterns became collector gold. The same dishes once ignored beside macaroni molds were now auctioned like sacred relics of Midwestern potluck civilization. She sold selected pieces for astonishing profits while still keeping enough to passive-aggressively serve holiday ham. What looked like garage sale addiction became strategic domestic archaeology. She didn't hoard casserole dishes. She cornered the market on America's baked good memory lane. Betty Crocker would have called it portfolio diversification. 11. A truck stop waitress in Missouri spent years accepting old silver coins from distracted travelers because she liked the sound they made, which is either charming intuition or the origin story of a Depression-era superhero. While everyone else dumped change into ashtrays and cup holders sticky with Dr. Pepper residue, she quietly swapped shiny modern coins for older ones with actual silver content. No investment seminars, no CNBC, just diner coffee, pie specials, and a suspicious affection for jingling pockets. Over decades, she amassed coffee cans full of silver currency while serving meatloaf to men named Dale. Then silver prices surged, collectors went feral, and her tip jar strategy suddenly looked less folksy and more genius. What started as a sonic preference became a retirement nest egg worth more than some pensions. Financial planners discuss commodities. She just trusted pre-1965 quarters and vibes. Turns out listening to your change like it's Johnny Cash was somehow smarter than half of Wall Street. 12. In suburban Illinois, one deeply stubborn father refused to cancel his newspaper subscription long after the family stopped reading it because he claimed, "Someday coupons alone will justify this nonsense." His kids rolled their eyes so hard they nearly entered another dimension. For years, stacks of newspapers piled up in the garage beside holiday decorations and half-finished home improvement projects no one would ever complete. But tucked inside were promotional inserts, regional coupons, and limited edition ads that collectors and rebate fanatics later hunted, like treasure maps for chain restaurants, legacy brands, and discontinued Americana. He also had pristine first edition issues covering major events, all preserved by pure procrastination. What looked like old paper hoarding became an oddly profitable archive of American consumer history. He sold select materials to collectors, nostalgia buffs, and marketing historians for shocking amounts. His family thought he was avoiding cleanup. In reality, he was accidentally curating the Smithsonian of expired Bed Bath & Beyond ambition. 13. In 1986, a painfully average salesman in Pennsylvania got rejected for a fancy country club membership, mostly because his jackets looked like they'd lost a fistfight with a Sears clearance rack. Bitter but determined, he did what many emotionally wounded Americans do. He went to a flea market. There, in a cardboard box between VHS workout tapes and chipped ashtrays, he found dozens of ugly old golf sweaters with bizarre patterns that looked like game show curtains. Instead of wearing them ironically, he bought them because they were cheap and warm. Then the 90s nostalgia wave hit decades later, and those hideous sweaters transformed into prized vintage fashion for golfers, collectors, and hipsters, trying to dress like their grandfathers won the Masters while slightly intoxicated. He began reselling them online for absurd markups. The same fashion sense that once got him socially benched became a profitable apparel empire. He didn't beat country club culture. He monetized its leftovers like a plaid-covered revenge fantasy. 14. A janitor in Nevada had absolutely no interest in cryptocurrency, stock options, or any financial concept requiring passwords. This was a man whose primary wealth strategy was, don't trust things you can't hold. So when casinos updated slot machines and started tossing old silver tokens and retired chips into liquidation bins, he bought buckets of them for scrap metal and novelty value. His garage slowly became what looked like a pirate with a gambling addiction had died there. Family members assumed this was either a breakdown or a deeply specific midlife crisis. But years later, collectors lost their minds over discontinued casino memorabilia, rare chips, and silver content gaming tokens from demolished Vegas landmarks. Suddenly, his accidental hoard of dusty Sin City leftovers became a jackpot. He hadn't invested in gaming. He'd invested in America's greatest retirement community for poor decisions. While others lost money at blackjack, this guy won by treating casino trash like archaeological treasure from Elvis-era bad judgment. 15. One suburban mom in Minnesota got so furious about overpriced Christmas decorations that she started buying post-holiday clearance junk every January 2nd like a tactical holiday prepper. While normal people moved on with their lives, she was out there hoarding inflatable snowmen, plastic reindeer, and enough twinkle lights to signal aircraft. Her basement looked like Santa's yard sale after a mild nervous breakdown. Friends laughed. Her husband whispered concerns. But then online resale markets exploded, supply chain shortages hit, and suddenly desperate Americans were paying premium prices in December for decorations she'd bought for pennies while listening to Jingle Bell Rock in discount aisles months earlier. She became the black market queen of suburban holiday panic. Neighborhood dads who once mocked her now arrived like desperate pilgrims seeking extension cords and LED nativity scenes. She didn't just save money, she turned festive spite into seasonal capitalism. Frosty the Snowman basically became her silent business partner. 16. A retired mechanic in Indiana absolutely refused to trust banks after one particularly confusing interaction, involving overdraft fees, a lollipop bowl, and what he described as too much carpet for honest business. So instead, he parked spare cash into old toolboxes and spent weekends buying classic car emblems, hood ornaments, and discontinued dealership signs because he liked real American metal. To his children, this looked less like investing and more like preparing for a chrome-based apocalypse. But nostalgia is one powerful drug, especially when baby boomers start rebuilding teenage dreams with retirement money. Vintage automobilia prices surged, and suddenly his dusty collection of old Ford badges, gas station signs, and rusted dealership relics became prime collector bait. He wasn't just hoarding garage nonsense. He'd accidentally built a blue-collar museum. What began as distrust of checking accounts became a surprisingly brilliant hedge powered by Route 66 memories and tailfin worship. He skipped compound interest and somehow retired on decorative hubcaps. 17. In suburban Georgia, one coupon-obsessed grandmother took supermarket double coupon days with the intensity of a Navy SEAL operation. She didn't shop. She conducted strategic grocery warfare with binders, scissors, and the 1,000-yard stare of someone who'd absolutely elbow you for canned soup savings. Her family mocked the towering stockpile of toothpaste, detergent, and shelf-stable beans filling every closet like a low-budget Costco bunker. Then, inflation arrived, supply chains hiccuped, and suddenly neighbors treated her ranch house like it was Fort Knox with fabric softener. She began selling surplus essentials locally for fair but profitable prices, essentially becoming the benevolent black market queen of paper towels and cereal. While others panicked over rising prices, she calmly rotated soup inventory like a four-star general. She didn't predict economic chaos. She just really hated paying full price. Turns out weaponized coupon clipping wasn't eccentricity. It was recession-proof infrastructure with sensible shoes. 18. A bored middle manager in Kansas hated his corporate office artwork so much, those bland motivational posters featuring mountains and words like synergy, that he started buying old roadside signs from bankrupt diners, motels, and gas stations just to decorate his basement bar. His wife called it tacky. His coworkers called it concerning. His basement looked like Route 66 had crashed into a bowling alley. But then, Americana nostalgia took over, and authentic neon signs from vanished roadside America became collector gold for restaurants, designers, and wealthy boomers trying to recreate vanished highway glory. The rusty Eat sign he bought for less than a steak dinner suddenly financed actual steak dinners for years. He didn't collect decor. He accidentally cornered the market on Midwestern sodium-soaked memories. While everyone else framed inspirational sunsets, this man trusted flickering motel arrows and expired pie advertisements. Somehow, greasy spoon aesthetics became his pension plan. 19. A woman in upstate New York inherited her uncle's massive comic book collection and nearly donated it, because, to her, it looked like a colorful paper monument to arrested development. Boxes everywhere. Capes, villains, improbable jawlines. Basically a cardboard shrine to adolescence. But before sending it all to charity, her son convinced her to check a few issues. Good call. Hidden among stacks of seemingly ridiculous pulp were pristine first appearances, rare printings, and enough collector-grade treasures to make grown men argue in convention centers for hours. What she thought was basement clutter turned out to be a fortune preserved by one man's lifelong refusal to stop believing in spandex. She sold portions strategically and made enough to pay off her mortgage. Her uncle hadn't wasted decades buying comics. He'd built a retirement portfolio disguised as Batman. Mock all you want, but somewhere between Superman and snack stains was financial freedom. 20. In 1978, a widowed bus driver in Wisconsin got spectacularly annoyed when his local bank offered him what he called an insulting interest rate wrapped in free coffee. So instead of opening a certificate of deposit like every respectable Midwestern adult in sensible loafers, he spent his modest savings buying old lunchboxes at estate sales because they reminded him of his kids and cost less than his weekly fish fry. Metal lunchboxes, Superman, Scooby-Doo, the Fonz. His neighbors assumed grief had finally taken a weirdly nostalgic turn. His garage slowly transformed into what looked like a daycare center for obsolete pop culture. Then Gen X grew up, got disposable income, and collectively decided their childhood deserved to be repurchased at irrational prices. Rare lunchboxes became collector gold. Suddenly, this irritated former bus driver was funding vacations by selling thermos-equipped rectangles once packed with peanut butter sandwiches. He didn't reject modern banking. He accidentally discovered that boomer cynicism plus Hanna-Barbera could outperform savings accounts. Wall Street had brokers. He had Scooby-Doo and spite. 21. A retired secretary in New Jersey absolutely refused to throw away old Avon bottles, perfume decanters, and bizarre decorative cosmetics because she believed pretty glass is never useless, which sounded insane right up until it didn't. For decades, her house looked like Liberace had opened a pharmacy. Tiny cars filled with cologne, miniature birds containing bath oil, decorative nonsense balanced on every shelf like suburban rococo. Her children begged her to declutter before someone died under an avalanche of scented glass. But then nostalgia collectors, vintage beauty enthusiasts, and eBay's army of hyper-specific treasure hunters arrived. Suddenly, these strange little relics of department store glamour became valuable Americana. Collectors weren't buying perfume. They were buying memories of mothers, grandmothers, and a time when beauty products looked like casino prizes. She sold enough vintage pieces to quietly out-earn her son's serious tech investments. Turns out decades of politely ignoring everyone's advice can become profitable when capitalism develops sentimental taste. Estee Lauder had elegance. She had owl-shaped bubble bath and superior returns. 22. In rural Oklahoma, one deeply suspicious farmer distrusted fancy retirement products, so much that after hearing about market crashes, recessions, and brokerage fees, he decided the only truly safe investment was buying abandoned payphones for scrap whenever towns ripped them out. Yes, payphones. Those sticky public confession booths where generations of Americans called home collect or desperately searched for quarters. He bought dozens, then hundreds, hauling them onto his land like some telecommunications doomsday prophet. His wife thought he'd finally snapped under the weight of weather and tractor payments. But when retro Americana exploded, collectors, movie studios, restaurants, and nostalgic businesses began hunting authentic payphones, booths, and signage. What looked like a field full of technological corpses became a goldmine of vintage communication history. Hollywood needed props. Diners wanted decor. Rich people apparently wanted rotary trauma in their game rooms. He didn't invest in dead technology. He cornered the market on public inconvenience. Alexander Graham Bell would have been confused, but deeply impressed. 23. In perhaps the greatest monument to accidental capitalism, a janitor from California spent nearly 40 years rescuing discarded concert t-shirts from thrift stores, garage sales, and donation bins because he needed cheap work shirts and rock bands used sturdier cotton. That was it. No market strategy, no collector instinct, just practical laundry decisions made by a man who wanted durable fabric while mopping floors. Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, Springsteen, Fleetwood Mac. He wore some, stuffed others in boxes, and treated vintage music history like backup mowing clothes. His family saw clutter. His co-workers saw a guy dressed like a roadie trapped in perpetual yard work. Then the vintage band tee market exploded with the force of middle-aged nostalgia, Gen X spending power, and younger collectors paying terrifying sums for original tour merch. Those sweaty old shirts became wearable stock portfolios. He sold selected pieces for enough to buy a house outright. This man didn't chase wealth, study trends, or diversify assets. He literally retired because he refused to throw away old Aerosmith. Somewhere, every financial planner on earth just got beaten by a mop bucket and 1977 Fleetwood Mac. Which money-making disaster was dumbest? Genius by accident or stupidity with better timing?